What's going on, guys? My name is Kyle and welcome back. Now, I don't think I can actually put into words how excited I am for today's video. But Kyle, what could possibly be exciting you so much? Well, we're getting a freaking exhaust, baby. Now, I'm sure that there's a bunch of you watching this that understand exactly how I feel right now. From the minute that I bought the Lancer to now, all I've been thinking about is how much better it would be with an exhaust. I want to hear that baby purr. Now, like I said in one of the previous videos on the Lancer, I don't have the ability to custom fabricate an exhaust. Unfortunately, with the 2004 CH model that we have, there aren't really any bolt-on options. I can't just buy a catback exhaust and bolt it to the car. Doesn't exist, at least not where I am. So our only real option is to get one made for this car, which is exactly what we've done. So the plan is tomorrow morning, take this car to the shop. The guys at the shop will make a custom exhaust for this car. I pick up the car, drive the car home, smile on my face. I don't know how well that plan's gonna work, but that's the plan. So I thought before tomorrow comes around and we lose the opportunity to do anything with the stock exhaust, I think we put the car up on jack stands, see what it looks like stock versus what it's gonna look like once it's finished, and we can do a sound test on the current exhaust versus what a custom exhaust is gonna be. So to help us with the sound testing, I have this. This is a decibel meter. What we're gonna do is do a reading of the car in its stock form, and then when the new exhaust is on the car, we're gonna do another reading and see how much louder it actually is in decibel reading. I mean, obviously we could sit here and be like, well, mate, that sounds like a race car, but we won't actually know how much louder it is until we test it. So why not? Perfect opportunity. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna put the car in the middle of the garage, jack it up, put it on car stands, make sure it's safe, and we'll try and jump underneath it and see what the current exhaust actually looks like. Alrighty, so I've got the car up on stands, everything's ready to go. It's moments like this I wish we had access to a hoist, because that would have made this whole process so much easier. So to make things a little bit easier for us to get around and have a look underneath the car without having access to a hoist, I've taken this rear right wheel off, which is where the muffler sits underneath the car. So at least we might be able to get a better look at the rear section of the exhaust, but again, we're not on a hoist, so this is gonna be very difficult to get underneath the car and show you exactly what's going on. And I wanna see myself, because I do wanna know what it looked like before they put a new exhaust in, so I can appreciate the work and effort that goes into putting a custom exhaust on a car. So what I guess we'll do is I'll grab some lights, we'll chuck them underneath the car, see how well the camera can actually see stuff, and we'll just go from there. All right, so we made it underneath the car. Hopefully you can hear me and hopefully you can see enough without it being super, super loud, but this is the bottom part of the front section of the exhaust, and then we work all the way down to the back of the car. So you can see the first muffler here, second muffler just down the back. So all of this piping is all gonna be replaced, and I'm so excited to see how good it looks and how it sounds, especially changing this out. So I don't think it's going to be a first muffler is what they're doing. I think we're doing a resonator in the front and then a muffler in the back. I'm not exactly sure. We'll see exactly what it is tomorrow, but that's the plan. So let's shuffle down. We'll see if we can have a look at the rear section of the muffler. Now you can do a full exhaust system. So a full exhaust system essentially goes from the block all the way to the rear. You can do ones from the heads back. You can do ones from the cat back, which is exactly what we're doing. And that's why it's called a cat back exhaust. But being underneath the car now and seeing where the cat is and seeing how much space there actually is underneath the car, it shouldn't be too difficult. Obviously I say that without knowing how to weld or how to do anything to actually make a custom exhaust, but I think this is going to be pretty successful. All right, now that we've seen everything underneath the car, let's get off this dirty garage floor, work out what we're going to do next. Okay, well, I mean, at least now we know what it looks like underneath the car, and I'm very happy that we actually did that. I was tossing up whether to put the car up on stands and actually have a look underneath the car with you guys before they change everything over, but I'm very happy that we did, because it's nice to see what it was to what it is going to be. I hope that makes sense. So now that we've seen underneath and we know what's going to be replaced and everything on that side of it is fine, we're going to have a look and see how loud the stock exhaust actually is. So I'm going to drop the car, make sure all the wheels are on, because I don't want to forget that, and then we're going to do a decibel test. I don't know what the parameters of this test are going to be. I'm thinking maybe we keep a meter and a half from the exhaust. We'll do a couple of revs and we'll try and make sure we can replicate that tomorrow with the new exhaust and just see how different it actually is. So let's do that now. So I've moved the car, everything's ready to go. I've got the decibel meter down there on the floor behind the car. I'll show you that in a second. And I think what we're gonna do now is do a couple of different tests. We'll try and replicate those when we get the new exhaust and just look at them side by side to see how much of a difference it actually makes. Alrighty, let me show you this little decibel meter contraption and then we'll start revving this engine. Alrighty, so this is what I've done. So I've got a mark here where the tip of the exhaust actually sits on the garage floor, and then a meter away I have another mark here. So this is the decibel meter that's right next to the 1 meter mark. So I'm gonna leave these tapes marked on the garage floor so we know exactly how big the difference actually was and where they were, and the room's exactly the same and blah, blah, blah. And I think that's how we're gonna do it. So I'm gonna set up the camera so you can see the decibel meter readings, and let's just start doing some tests. Alrighty, let's see what she reads. 82.1 decibels. Not bad, but we can beat that. We can beat that. So there we go. The factory exhaust is sitting at about 82.1 decibels, which is not super loud, but it's not the quietest thing ever. I'm very curious to see how much of a difference it is from factory to a custom exhaust. So what I'm gonna do now is pack everything up, get it all ready for tomorrow to go to the shop and get the exhaust on. And then once the exhaust is done, we're pretty much gonna repeat this process. Jack the car up, have a look underneath it, run the same decibel test, and see what the difference of factory to aftermarket really is. But on that note, I'll see you in the morning. Good morning. Let's go get an exhaust. Now there's a couple of reasons as to why you might want to upgrade your exhaust. The first one is pretty obvious. It's the way it sounds. When you put your foot on the throttle and open it up. Me personally, I love that, and it's one of the only reasons as to why I'm putting an exhaust on this car. But like I said, sound isn't the only reason that you should upgrade your exhaust. In some exhaust situations, you may get an increase in power, but that all depends on how much of a system that you want to go for. With a certain type of exhaust system, you can get an increase in power. Unfortunately, with our situation, I don't think we're really going to gain anything from putting this exhaust on the car. I mean, it might open up a little bit of restrictions for the airflow, but I don't think it's really going to do much in the way of performance. The big thing for me that I like with this car is I want to be able to hear the way that it sounds, and because it's quite a small car, and at the moment with the factory exhaust, you can't hear it. Realistically, when you're driving, you can't really hear the way that this car sounds, which is fine, but I feel like when I'm driving on the road next to bigger cars and things like that, nobody can see where I am. Nobody knows that I'm there, and that sucks. So hopefully, after we get the exhaust on this car, it's not going to be super loud, but it should be loud enough that if we're driving on the road and there's people that may not necessarily see us without hearing us first, we may have a better chance of them being aware of where we are. All right, so I'm not too far from where the shop is, so I'm going to drop the car off. I will keep you updated as to when I'm going to pick the car back up again, and hopefully by the end of today, we're going to have a sick exhaust. Here's hoping. Good morning. Good morning. Who's ready for some exhaust? So the car's back, the exhaust is done, and it sounds very loud. It's very loud. It is a little bit louder than I thought it was gonna be. I might put a baffle in it to try and quieten it down a little bit, but for the purposes of this exercise, it'll be fine. So here's what we're gonna do. I've got the car up on jack stands exactly as I did the other day. We're gonna look underneath the car, see how much of it's been replaced, what it actually looks like, and then we're gonna start it. We're gonna do the same sound test from the same distance and hopefully get a pretty accurate reading. Obviously, this is not the most scientific way to do things, but for the sake of our purposes, I think it'll be fine. So let's go have a look under the car. And would you have a look at that? Oof, all in the black, looks fantastic, and it stretches the whole length, just looks so good. So let's go through what they did. So right here is the catalytic converter. And like I said the other day, this exhaust is a cat back exhaust. So it starts from the catalytic converter, goes all the way to the end. So as we're coming up the pipe here, this little bulge here is where we used to have our first muffler, but this has been replaced and now has a resonator in it. So what a resonator does is drones out some of those really bassy frequencies that sound terrible and just tighten it up a little bit, which is really nice. And then you move down and you've got your rear muffler there and your exhaust tip. So we'll have a look at that back section now and we'll have a look and see what that looks like. So same deal with the back section, from the resonator all the way back. It goes underneath the suspension cross arms here, all the way through to the rear muffler, and it just looks great. The rear muffler is a sports muffler, so it has a bit more of a high flow feel than the factory muffler. But all in all, I am pretty chuffed with how great this looks. I know how it sounds, obviously, because I've driven the car home, but the way it looks, I'm happy with that. Looks fantastic. Alrighty, let's get off this bloody floor. So I mean, there you go. If you're judging off the way it looks fantastic. But we want to know how it sounds. So I'm going to drop the car, put it in position, get ready to do our sound test, and see how loud this new exhaust is compared to the factory one. Let's go. Alrighty, everything is set up. We've got the microphone in place. We've got it at the same distance as we did the other day. Everything is ready to start this car and give it a bit of something. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put the camera exactly where it was yesterday. I've watched the footage that I took yesterday of revving the engine, so I sort of know what I did, and I'm gonna try and replicate that as best as I can to try and keep it fair. But what we're looking for is maximum decibels. So the decibel meter is set to max hold, which means once it gets to that loudest point, it'll hold that reading, so I know exactly how loud it gets at its peak. So let's go get it set up and see how loud these pipes are. Alrighty, let's go. So let's see what we're at. 91.8 decibels. Do you know what? 91.8 isn't actually as bad as I thought. I genuinely thought this exhaust was going to be like 95 to 100 because it just seems so much louder. But 91.8, that's still loud, but it's not ridiculously obnoxious loud. So there you go. With our hyper-scientific experiment, we know that the new exhaust sits at 91.8. We'll call it 92 just to be safe. 92 decibels, which is not that bad. I thought it was going to be louder, which is good. Now, if you have a car that you want to put an exhaust on, I would definitely suggest doing your research. Every different area of Australia and other countries of the world have different noise regulation requirements that you have to abide by when you put exhaust on the car. For us, it's 90 decibels. So technically, even though this is only 91.8, we are still over that limit. So I do need to put a baffle in this car to bring it back below 90, just to make sure it fits within the noise restriction limits. Now I know that there's probably a lot of people out there like, people are too harsh on loud exhausts and blah, blah, blah. But at the end of the day, rules are the rules. For an extra couple of decibels, keep it to the limit, make sure you're doing the right thing. Now for those who want a reference of what it roughly costs us to put an exhaust on this one was a little bit of a different situation because I couldn't just buy a bolt-on kit. This had to be fabricated and made specifically for the channel underneath this car, which took a little bit of extra labor. So all up, I paid $500. That's all of the labor, all of the parts, and we got to choose our own exhaust tip, which is kind of cool. I mean, overall, would I be happy to pay less than that? Yes. Would I be happy to pay the same price that I did for this? Absolutely. Because I know the shop, I've dealt with them for like the last 5 or 6 years with pretty much every car I've ever put an exhaust on, and I know that if I have any issues or if there's something happens or whatever the situation, I can go to them and they will help me. And I'm not gonna be left to my own devices to try and fix an issue. But you know what? I'm pretty happy with this whole thing, to be honest. I mean, since I bought the car, I wanted to have an exhaust on it, and now that it's on it, I'm happy. Now, what's next for the Lancer? We've done the tint, we've done the exhaust, I've done a bunch of stuff to the interior that you guys haven't seen yet, but there will be a video coming out very soon about it. What do we do next? There's a couple of things that Millie and I have planned to sort of do to the car and work out what sort of steps we want to take. But for those of you that don't know, the roof has some dents, has a bunch of dents. When I bought this car, I wanted one that was super dented. I think I got one that was a little bit too dented. So the roof's got quite a bunch of damage to it. I did take it to a panel beater recently just to sort of see what options we had. I don't want to pay a fortune to have the roof fixed, but I can manage other body panels. The roof is something that I don't really want to touch because I want a professional to handle it, which I think is fair, being a structural part of the car. So I recently took that to a panel beater and he said, no, I'm not fixing that. He said it would cost almost the same amount as the car's value just to fix the roof. So that's not gonna happen. One thing he did suggest was to wrap the roof in a carbon fiber wrap because the textured finish would help hide some of the dents. I don't know how accurate that is, but that's probably something we're gonna try. But once the roof's wrapped, then we're gonna start working on some other things. Maybe get a body kit, maybe work out how we're gonna wrap it or do things like that. I don't know yet, I don't know. But if you have suggestions or anything that you want me to do to this car, I'm so open to suggestions. If you guys like this video, don't forget to leave it a thumbs up. Also subscribe. I post new videos every week. You don't want to miss them. If you want to join us on any of our social media, all the links will be in the description. Come and say what's up. We have a great community of people. I would love to have you there. If you want to come and talk about cars, do some racing, or make fun of my Lancer, come and join the stream. I stream every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. The whole schedule's in the description. Come talk to me. Other than that, guys, I'm going to leave you to it. I hope you enjoyed. Bye.